more things to do. We have our a proposal before us on the 3rd. Thank you. That was a lot to get through. I think we have a lot of things that are out there on the table. All right, UNPCH. This is the directive that has come to this committee from the executive committee, which met in late October to discuss, and I believe a revised version of the resolution is circulated. We are not, let's be clear, we are not taking the resolution up. We are here to discuss key points. Each of these committees that are listed here, and I believe it's a non-exhaustive list, will submit feedback and suggestions to the executive committee in November, where that committee, the executive committee, will make a decision in December, which is actually voted in January, and formulate a recommendation to send to DOT. So, would anyone from UNPCH like to speak for a few minutes?
To read the resolution?
Please don't read the resolution.
Okay.
Read it the last time.
But anyone want to speak about it? We've all been given it, so the copy has been circulated. And if you haven't sent a soft copy to the board office, please do. The digital version.
Oh yes, that has been done. Sorry. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, a former version circulated in the notice of this meeting, so they're a much shorter version.
Right. So, well, this version just has informational, supplemental information how the resolution came to fruition. Basically, the upshot is that Punch is suggesting that there be a reduction of the open streets, Vanderbilt open streets, because of all of the detriment that has been observed on Vanderbilt Avenue, Underhill Avenue, Clausen, Franklin, Washington, Atlantic, and even out as far as Flatbush and I understand is Franklin and maybe Nostrand too. So that's a lot of people. It's not just a little bit. People on the cross streets, people are having difficulty on the 65 bus getting to where they need to go to. The 45 bus, 45 bus and of course the 69 is detrimentally impacted. So our requested proposal is to reduce it to only 2 months in the summertime when there's not that much school traffic, of course, and not every day, not 3 days a week, but 2 days a week or 1 day a week.
And not such a large footprint. Because we've also been documenting this summer because of the situation with Mitchell's. Every weekend we would walk and take videos and check it out. And it seems like there's really only 2 blocks that are actively used. And in particular, the blocks from Bergen to Atlantic and the blocks from Sterling to Park, we never see really being utilized to justify that large of a disruption to the rest of the community. So we're also requesting that the footprint shrink down to reflect the usage better.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments, the word says feedback, or suggestions on the resolution to mention, Mr. Mia?
Yeah, as someone who lives in Prospect Heights and really loves the open street, I would be very disappointed to see it cut back to just like 2 days a year. But I think the points about accessibility, or was it
2 a month.
2 days on the weekend.
Oh well, I was reading the proposal as it says only the first and third Saturdays. And only the first, okay, so 4 days a year, because only the first and third Saturdays of May and June, or June and July. And,
So 4 days a year.
yeah, the proposal in this text says 4 days a year. And that,
Does it?
yes, it does.
Well, it also says that
and excuse me, please. But I do think the accessibility concerns are valid, and I would like to see that while I would be very disappointed to see the open street reduced, given that it's already been reduced quite a bit by a couple months. I would like to see firmer consequences for those scofflaw restaurants, because I did go and check out the ones that the man who was at the previous meeting pointed out, such as I think it was Fawn, and I've been on the lookout and noticed some other problems myself with places like Nourish that very clearly are not leaving 8 feet. So I think that there is definitely points about, like, there is validity to the fact that there are restaurants not abiding by these regulations. And I think that we can address those without severely diminishing this program that so many in the neighborhood love. Especially I see families out there all the time, even on the streets where like the restaurants aren't participating. There's like kids out there with like chalk and who can play or like go on their scooters. And I just think that's such a wonderful program.
Thank you. Jen?
Yeah, I just want to say that actually we go out there quite often. We've surveyed all the businesses on the street, and just like the Republicans and the Democrats, it's a 50-50 split as to who it's benefiting. So that's one. Two, especially in August and September, we've observed that hardly anybody, except as mentioned, that 2-block area, where, by the way, most of those restaurants are sponsors, and that's good. That's a good thing to have sponsors. I'm not saying that's bad, but there are occasions when there are people using the street. But there's the lovely Pacific Park, there's gonna be that great Lowry Triangle Park, there's Prospect Park, there's a kids park. Do you really want your kids playing in the dirty street with the e-bikes and stuff going past? I mean, as an older person, I don't go anywhere near open street because of the e-bikes and the mopeds and the motorcycles and the bicycles, and there's so much chaos on that street, not to mention the fact that there are people that live above those stores that are impacted every weekend. So we're not saying eliminate open streets. And oh, by the way, I also think it's a little early in the history of Prospect Heights right now to actually support the kind of an open street that they want to have year-round, because there's not enough variety of businesses on that street. And yes, maybe when all those big buildings are built, there will be more people actually accessing and using that street. But our observation, and we go out there quite often, and we write down how many people are sitting out there on the street, and honestly, in August and September, there aren't that many people out there. In June and July, yes. You know, so all we're asking is to modify the schedule for now. That can always be changed in the future. And honestly, I have a feeling with the big recession coming that they're probably not gonna run it as often. That's my personal opinion. Okay?
It's a mayoral program. Anybody over here at the side of the room? Yes, ma'am.
I would also just like to add that, to Denny's point with the bikes and the motorcycles and the, like, policing that safety has been like a hot potato that nobody wants to touch. Like, you know, 77 doesn't want to do it, 78 doesn't want, you know, I didn't know about it, you know, PHNBC, the marshals, like, and in the meantime, it's just like, you know, speeding and no one's policing anything.
Nobody's
Or, like,
policing. That's
because
right.
technically you're not allowed to have the mopeds, you're allowed to have e-bikes and, but not
Yeah.
motorcycles and electric.
Yeah, certainly. Sorry, I'll
Suddenly
yield to
raise hands. Are you responding to that, or is
I
this?
was, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, just that I think I'm seeing the same concerns with the mopeds, and I don't want to diminish that at all,
What's
but
your
I'm
name?
disappointed by
Loretta.
just like quick math. It looks like this would be approximately a 95-ish% reduction, maybe more because I might be forgetting Fridays, in open streets hours, and that's part of why I would be really sad to see this proposal.
I do see some hands up. Mr. Deb, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm on.
Go ahead.
All right, you know, I think that,
And just give it 5 minutes.
yeah,
So
okay,
it's
I
the-
think that, one of the problems we have here is that there's no equity, there's no compromise. And maybe the recommendation might be too far one way, but I would like to see if the Prospect Heights group would be willing, what can they offer? We are coming out, because I'm part of this, we're coming out and say we need something more, but it doesn't seem like anybody is willing to give anything. And it's so one-sided in this community. You know, we talk about we like it, well, but you're not we in isolation. So you talk about the 65, you talk about the 45. You know, you have people from other communities that are being grossly impacted by what's going on. There's safety issues there. I don't need to go through all of that. But the point that is so frustrating for me is nobody wants to give. The people who've done the grabbing and taking it to the 100th degree don't want to offer and say, okay, we hear you. Let's create a balance. And it's not just happening here, it's happening throughout the city. And it's infuriating. I'm sorry.
May I? You got somebody?
No, we're gonna way around. Alex?
Yeah, thanks, Deb. Yeah, you know, I really hear that, and in a lot of ways, it makes me, you know, disappointed this has come up in the way that it has. Because I don't think we can pretend like, you know, bringing this before the committee as official business wouldn't be incredibly must. And I really hoped that the nature of this committee this year would be to do some more collaborative work and to get folks together to look at policy more closely, to talk about solutions. You know, viewers asking what's a bike boulevard. Let's look at it. Let's look at where they're good, where they're bad. What do other cities in the world do? You know, and I still, I'm sorry to see you go. I raised this question last year about the Ubers, right? And I think, over email, raised this question of Uber and how many, you know, for-hire vehicles there are. And I think that's a great example of an issue that we could really do some great work on. There are way too many for-hire vehicles, right, causing traffic. And let's bring this committee together. Let's bring the members together, right? Let's do some outreach to each other. Let's do some more subcommittee work to address policy, to have constructive conversations, to make this a really equitable, great space where, you know, folks are empowered and everyone has a voice, and you know, we understand each other. And so, you know, for those reasons, I really kind of resent this, as I said, being taken up as official business. And I'll also add that the resolution shared tonight is extremely different from the soft copy that was sent via email. That seems a little sneaky. You know, I don't think that's
No, we were asked to make those changes by the chair. It's not sneaky. We were in response to.
I don't think.
No, Mr.
Not
No,
you, the executive.
the committee, the public safety gave recommendations on it.
Right.
To go more, to be specific.
But we weren't sneaky. We were asked.
We should all have seen the same document.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't see, they didn't send it to public safety.
Really?
No, we sent it to Julia.
So maybe that's an administrative error.
Each of the committees should have independently evaluated the same document.
Yeah, you know.
Nothing sneaky,
all
though.
to say, I don't think this is productive, and I don't think it's going to get us where we need to be, and it's not how I want to work with my fellow members on stuff.
Thank you, Alex.
Yes,
You?
Thank you for bringing that out, and as we feel heard and seen, oftentimes, voices like mine get lost in this committee.
Loud, yeah.
Speak up, please.
I just wanted to thank him because for making me feel seen and heard, because oftentimes I feel like voices like mine get lost in this committee. I also wanted to say that we all have a right to have differences of opinion. I agree, we should respect each other. He's not here to defend himself, Scott, and for that I'm sorry, but I still have to say it.
You're fine.
I just feel like, you know, he may not have meant it, but I feel like he comes across very angry, and it makes maybe other people in this committee that have opposing views from him feel like they can't say anything because he's gonna pounce on them.
Oh, that's valid.
And I felt uncomfortable. So I want more than anything else to work with fellow committee members, whether they have differences of opinion than I do. Again, the operative word is compromise, and I oftentimes do not see that here.
Yeah, I mean, I would just to build on the last two comments, I would say, and I'm definitely, absolutely want to be engaged in any kind of conversation that has to do with turning these conversations into more productive, having more productive outcomes. And I think that one key part of it really is that if you're, as a community, having a discussion, there's nobody who owns the plans or the decisions. Those things have to be shared in the right timing. And then if you're, and I'm speaking from somebody whose personal sentiment and beliefs is much more along the lines of sort of Wall Street's changes and wanting to see, I have to say that if there's somebody in this room or anywhere who thinks, this is what I want to do, I'm not going to tell anybody though, because it's just going to cause all this opposition. It actually makes the opposition worse. It really does. So you have to actually learn how to share more regularly and participate more. And, yes, we're all going to end up being disappointed 9 out of 10 times when it comes to advocacy, right? Maybe I'm being generous. But you have to be prepared for that in this kind of situation. You can't expect to win 10 out of 10 times. But you do have the right to hope that you're concluded in 10 out of 10 decisions.
Good point. Peter, and then Linda,
Thank you.
and then Francis.
I gotta go to work, so I'm gonna leave after I speak, all right? But I would like to say this to my committee members, right? Anytime that you're in favor of something that others are opposing for specific reasons, challenge yourself, right? To see how what you want can work in light of what it is that they also want. Right? If you get in opposition, you're in a situation that exists, right? We speaking of Vanderbilt, right? Mm-hmm. That exists. Now you're getting opposition from your committee members and the community. Challenge yourself to say, all right, I'm at the top of the heap. This currently exists. It benefits me. But the people that I'm working with have a problem with this. How can I incorporate and make things better with their problem? Always take that perspective in anything you approach, right? I offer that to y'all because I've been in committee situations with different departments that you all would not even probably encounter, right? And that has been the methodology that I've always incorporated in my situations, right? But I got to go to work, so I have to leave.
Well, before we move on, Linda and Francis, just what a great Thanksgiving moment I think this committee is having. I don't mean that facetiously, so thank you all for sharing.
So clearly, we've been doing this a while. We've all had these conversations for a long time, and there are a lot of feelings around this. So let's just put our feelings aside for a minute if we can and talk about the impacts of this program on the community, because we have a large group of volunteers. We have spent 1.5 years canvassing this neighborhood. We have submitted to the community board and to our representatives and to the DOT 42 letters from small businesses saying that the open street detrimentally hurts their bottom line. Some of these businesses, one of whom came to this committee last January, got harassed in response for speaking their truth about their business. In addition to that, we have 7 faith-based organizations that are in the process. We're writing a letter, but they've all agreed that this is impacting their congregations. There are, I think, 3 Baptists, 1 Catholic, the Jewish Shabbat, the Muslim mosque, and then there's the Haitian Baptist I'm forgetting also. But the congregants cannot get to their church services and this is impacting the community in that a lot of older people find their community in their faith-based organizations. The biggest issue really has been the bus has been cut off from people who cannot get to the new stops. We had one woman who worked on Vanderbilt who had to pay $5,000 to take Ubers to her job at a laundromat. So I understand that you like the open street, and that's why we've approached it in the spirit of compromise. Like, we're not saying let's shut it down altogether. We're saying let's give people a chance to move around the neighborhood. So there is a part you did miss. It says either one full day 2 times a month, or if you want to do 2 weekend days, it would start after 5 p.m. because the big issue that impacts our safety, our health, and our quality of life is that Friday night rush hour closing that backs up traffic all down Flatbush, all down Atlantic, and all down Washington. And we've all seen videos, we've posted them on our Instagram, of ambulances, fire trucks, police cars stuck in that gridlock, and that's a disaster waiting to happen. We all have families we care about. The last thing I'll bring up is that at the January meeting, James Ramel from Mitchell Soul Food came to this committee. So when you say, Alex, that you want to see things worked on in committee, we came to the committee. This isn't just like poof out of nowhere. Mitchell Soul Food told this committee that if the open street continued in the same way, they would be forced to close because they are a Sunday mainly business, because they serve churchgoers, senior citizens. They said they lose money Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but they only asked for Sunday. They offered a compromise. They were turned down. So we're bringing this resolution in the spirit of like, look, I'm going to be honest, I would love to see the whole thing go away. But we recognize that there are people in the community who get enjoyment out of it. So we're trying to strike a middle ground. How can our seniors and disabled get to church, get down to, the B65, I just want to bring up, also goes to the hospital. So this is an important bus line. And that's it. That's why we brought it up.
Well, I'm on board with her. I go to Mitchell's every weekend just to talk a lot or whatever. And I have to walk 2 or 3 blocks just to get there. And it's not good for the seniors. If I have to take some food, then I can't get it. So I'm full on board with the reduce. I didn't say cut it out, reduce. And I know everybody's not going to be happy by everything. We are not happy what they do, and they're not happy what we do. And I can understand that. But I can think we can come together with the reduce fairness for everybody. So we, myself, can get to Mitchell's on the weekend.
And I forgot to add some, Debbie, very, very quick. We had a rally to save Mitchell's. We tried to bring compromises to the DOT and to the PHNDC. We had multiple meetings about this, and nothing was done to help the restaurant. The community saved Mitchell's from closing because people were coming from Staten Island, Long Island, New Jersey. One woman told me she took a bus 2 hours to get there because they didn't want to see this 40-year-old business fail. But when you talk about this program is great, it doesn't work for everybody. And we're all part of this community. And Mitchell's has been part of the community for 40 years, before you finished high school, right? Before you were born, young man. So they matter, and their customers matter. And they've asked for concessions, and so has lots of other people. And this was the subject of the town hall we were supposed to have with Mayor Adams that is supposedly being rescheduled. We'll see.
Ms. Nottingham, is that a hand?
Yes, it is. But I think the gentleman had his hand up before me.
Just 30 seconds. I love open streets. It's one of the reasons that my girlfriend was able to convince me to move to the neighborhood and when we moved in together. I love that it brings a dynamic streetscape to life. But I'm not personally attached to open streets itself. I'm attached to that idea of the open streetscape. And I kind of go back to the point you was making earlier. Like there are ways that we can make compromises as a community that solve both of us, solve all of our needs. I can imagine we have a street of Vanderbilt that is more like Fulton Street Transit Mall, where it allows those buses, allows those emergency vehicles, but provides more pedestrian space for more restaurant space. That would be wonderful. And then the open street itself goes away. And that's not the thing that I'm pointing towards open street. It's community vibrancy.
So, the bus, it is mentioned not enough times tonight. And that's my one, I wish we could have a way to keep that B69.
Yes.
And again, all of this is up in the air because God only knows what the Brooklyn bus redesign is going to look like.
No, the
B69
B69
goes
is
away.
staying the same.
It's
It's
whatever you've
65
heard.
they're moving.
It has not been made official yet. I've heard rumors about a new plan. It has not been made official yet. But the same thing with open streets. It is up in the air. So yeah, thank you for considering. Yeah, Tracy.
Yeah, I just wanted to gently respond to Adelaide. Okay, that you were sort of concerned that this wasn't necessarily the business of this committee, but it actually, from my understanding, it is, and perhaps Linda, you can help me with that, is that the community boards are supposed to be able to give input to the Open Streets program, to DOT, or to whoever's running it, PHNDC in this specific case, but there are other entities. But there had not been any information, or there had not been any direction that the community board was given to what to vote on, and so therefore, in the absence of a proposal from the community board, guidelines upon which they should need to consider an Open Streets program, it got to the point that we needed to present one to you all. So, myself now too, but so therefore, I would gently say that it is part of our scope. It's just been ignored for a little while.
Sure. I hear you. Yeah, and I don't want to get into a really long extended discussion about it. Anyone can come to the committee meetings and raise things that they'd like to. I think my issue was more about the approach we're taking to working on policy relevant to the committee should be one, that's not so inherently divisive. I could come with a resolution next month about expanding open streets all over the neighborhood. I'm not going to do that, right? Because that's not going to be productive. And I think when this specific approach makes me feel as if we're not really going to make a lot of progress, and some folks might be antagonized. I think we did great work last year on specific issues. As a member, I brought up daylighting and worked it through the subcommittees and talked with folks about it, and talked about why it matters to me, and why I thought the committee should do work on that issue, and I think that went really well. I always think we can do better, but I'd like to see more. I'd like to see an approach similar to that happen for more other issues. I think there's so much policy work this committee can do, and I think we can really, really make a lot of progress and develop a much better shared understanding of policy as it relates to streets, to just to make the committee and the board and the neighborhoods function a little bit better.
Really quickly, I agree. There is a lot of
Louder.
divisiveness, and I have to call it out. I think it's triggering when folks come in with items and stickers that say ban cars. It's triggering for me. And it's, of course, the First Amendment, if there's a speech, you can do whatever you want. But if we're trying to find some kind of cohesion, that's not helpful.
Look, Ms. Langley got the closest of it, right?
Yeah.
If everybody's unhappy, we win, right? That's the nature of compromise.
Yeah.
I just feel that we're not, there are people who've been in the community for a long time, and there are new people. I think if we take the time to understand who is near to you, who is around you, and understand the impact, policy is one thing. When we get that, the human element, which is really missing, then we can start putting our policies together. But we can't put the policy first and forget the human element. And I think that's where we really need to start. So I understand what you're saying, but we need to start at the human element. understanding, appreciating each other, knowing each other. Yes, there's some people over there that need wheelchair access. There's some people here that need to get to that store, that church over there. That's their Sabbath. That's that. Then you can start going, okay, we have the lay of the land. We understand our neighbors. We appreciate our neighbors. Now let's see what policies we can come up with. That's where it is, and that's why we have so much. Some people feel put off and all of that. So let's start there. The human.
Thank you.
Make it quick. I'm going to take off my hat as co-chair for EST and put on my hat for public safety, as a presentation was done to Community Board of Public Safety. Our committee, it was brought to us, and public, open streets, environmental sanitation, especially transportation is part of public safety. So it was brought to us where that we're having a large amount of traffic that's being diverted to the side streets, and that's where their presentations with the increased traffic on the side streets where pedestrians are concerned, and where some frustrated drivers are concerned because of all the congestion and the safety matters of the pedestrians getting around with with all the increased traffic on the side streets. So the public safety, that was a concern, and they also mentioned about the bikes riding through the Vanderbilt. That's a split between 77 and 78 precinct. 77 precinct said that they're trying to enforce it, but that's a hard thing to do, and that is part of public safety. And what else? Other issues? I think they also had an issue maybe with emergency vehicles going through, and that is part of public safety. So that was brought to our table, and it was a discussion that was made. And and some of the community members gave their recommendations as they normally would.
So on that note, again, feedback is what we're looking for. So much like between now and the December 3rd meeting, if you have feedback you wish to give to be relayed to the executive committee, please submit it to the board office on this resolution, and it will be relayed.
I do have a question about some of the information in the handout. And is it possible to get a bit more detail about, the businesses that said they were negatively impacted? I would just be a little bit more curious to hear about the reasons. Similar to William, I patronize a lot of businesses during open streets, and I love it. I've always seen it to be really vibrant and dynamic, but I haven't been there, every day walking at all hours, so I could just be going when it's the busy time. But I think just hearing that 50% of the businesses have say that they've been negatively impacted just seems a bit surprising to me, just because of the number of people I've seen out there going, to the bookstores and the restaurants. I'm just curious. So I'm not negating that it's true. I would just be curious to hear a little bit more, and in the spirit of compromise, to understand what might be the solutions to meet them halfway, because it does seem like if I'm reading the schedule adjustment correctly, it would only make it so that it's 4 days out of the year. The first and third Saturday of 2 months, that's 4 days, which seems like a very drastic reduction from the current schedule. So it would be great to understand the reasons a bit more and see if there's a more middle ground we can find that.
In the interest of time, would you be willing to take those answers offline?
Yes.
Great, thanks. And if I'm sure Linda and Christy, you guys would be willing to provide those answers.
Absolutely, certainly.
I want to thank everybody for giving 3.5 hours of their time tonight. I rarely let meetings go past an hour and a half, so yeah, this is special. Thank you all for coming. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion. And I want you to know you can and making my stuffing tonight.
Jen stuffing will be subpar. Everybody have a nice Thanksgiving.
You too.